The elevator doors began to close inside Seoul's tallest luxury tower, and not a single executive moved to stop them. Their Italian leather shoes gleamed against polished marble. Their watches caught the light of crystal chandeliers. Behind them, an elderly man in worn-out clothing shuffled forward, his weathered hand reaching for the closing gap. A sharply dressed executive turned, saw him, and shoved him backward without a word. The old man fell hard against the cold floor. Nobody gasped. Nobody helped. Nobody even looked back as the doors sealed shut. But across the lobby, a young African woman dropped her folder of documents and ran. She knelt beside him, helped him to his feet, and whispered something kind before disappearing into the crowd. The next morning, that same forgotten old man walked through the executive entrance. Every single person in the building bowed. Before we continue, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from so I can see how far across the world this story has reached. Zainab Adeyemi had been in Seoul for exactly 47 days when she witnessed what cruelty looked like dressed in expensive fabric. She had been crossing the lobby of CO Tower, clutching a manila folder containing her interpreter credentials, hoping to deliver them to the Human Resources Department on the 14th floor. The building intimidated her. Everything about it screamed wealth she had never touched, power she had never understood. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls. Security guards in tailored uniforms stood at attention near revolving doors that moved silently, as though even sound feared disturbing the executives who passed through. She noticed the old man immediately. He walked slowly, carefully, as though each step required negotiation with tired bones. His clothes were clean but faded. A simple gray jacket. Trousers that had been mended more than once. Shoes that had seen years of walking. He carried no briefcase, no identification badge, nothing that marked him as someone who belonged in this marble palace. The elevator chimed. 6 executives stepped inside, their conversation never pausing, their laughter filling the polished cabin like they owned the very air they breathed. The old man shuffled forward. One executive, tall and immaculately groomed, glanced over his shoulder. His lip curled with something between disgust and annoyance. Without hesitation, he extended his arm and pushed. The old man stumbled backward, his arms flailing, his body hitting the floor with a sound that echoed across the silent lobby. Nobody moved. The elevator doors closed. Zainab's folder hit the ground before she even realized she had dropped it. Her heels clicked rapidly against marble as she crossed the distance between them. She knelt beside him, her hands gentle against his shoulders, her voice soft but steady. "Are you hurt? Please let me help you." The old man looked up at her. His eyes, warm and surprisingly clear, studied her face with an intensity that seemed out of place for someone who had just been thrown to the ground. "You stopped," he said quietly. "Of course I stopped. No one else did." Zainab glanced around the lobby. Security guards pretended to check their radios. Receptionists studied their computer screens with sudden fascination. Businessmen and women walked past, their gazes fixed forward, their consciences apparently undisturbed. "Can you stand?" she asked. He nodded slowly. She helped him to his feet, her arm supporting his elbow until he was stable. He was taller than she had expected, and despite his simple clothing, there was something dignified about the way he held himself once standing. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Something about the question felt weighted, as though her answer would be recorded somewhere important. "Zainab. Zainab Adeyemi." He smiled then, a gentle expression that transformed his weathered face into something almost luminous. "You have a kind heart, Zainab Adeyemi. That is rare in buildings like this." Before she could respond, he adjusted his jacket, straightened his shoulders, and walked toward the service exit near the back of the lobby. She watched him go, wondering if she should follow, wondering if he needed more help than a steady arm. But her phone buzzed with a reminder about her appointment, and by the time she looked up again, he had vanished. She gathered her scattered documents, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the elevator bank. The security guard near the doors glanced at her with barely concealed curiosity. "You shouldn't have done that," he murmured as she passed. "Done what?" "Helped him. People don't touch the homeless in CO Tower." Zainab stopped walking. She turned to face the guard, her expression calm but unmoving. "Where I come from," she said quietly, "we believe that how you treat people who cannot repay you reveals exactly who you are." The guard said nothing. She stepped into the elevator alone. That night, Zainab sat in her small apartment in Mapogu eating jollof rice she had cooked on a single burner stove, wondering why the old man's eyes had stayed with her. She had helped dozens of people since arriving in Seoul. Elderly women struggling with groceries, lost tourists searching for subway stations, children separated from their parents in crowded markets. Kindness was simply how she moved through the world. Her mother had raised her that way. Her grandmother had reinforced it. In her family, compassion was not optional. It was as essential as breathing. But something about today felt different. The way he had looked at her. The weight of his question. The strange dignity in his bearing despite his humble clothing. She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. Tomorrow she would return to CO Tower. Tomorrow she would deliver her credentials. Tomorrow she would continue building the life she had traveled across continents to create. She washed her dishes, said her evening prayers, and fell asleep to the sounds of Seoul traffic humming through her window. The next morning, Zainab arrived at CO Tower precisely 15 minutes early. She had chosen her outfit carefully. A modest navy dress that fell below her knees. Simple black heels. Her natural curls pulled back with a silk scarf that had belonged to her mother. Minimal jewelry. Professional elegance that required no apology. The lobby was busier than yesterday. Executives moved in clusters, their conversations hushed, their expressions tense. Something had changed in the atmosphere. Even the security guards seemed more alert, their postures rigid, their eyes scanning the crowd with unusual intensity. Zainab approached the reception desk. "Good morning. I have an appointment with Human Resources regarding interpreter credentials." The receptionist glanced at her computer screen, then back at Zainab with an expression that bordered on confusion. "Your name?" "Zainab Adeyemi." The receptionist's fingers froze above her keyboard. "One moment, please." She picked up a phone, spoke quietly into the receiver, and listened for what seemed like an eternity. When she hung up, her entire demeanor had shifted. Confusion had been replaced by something closer to deference. "Miss Adeyemi, please follow me." "Is there a problem with my appointment?" "No, ma'am. Your appointment has been upgraded." Zainab's stomach tightened. She had no idea what that meant, but nothing about the receptionist's sudden formality felt reassuring. They walked past the standard elevators toward a private corridor she had not noticed yesterday. Carpet here was thicker. The lighting was softer. Security cameras tracked their movement with mechanical precision. The end of the corridor stood a single elevator with no visible buttons. The receptionist pressed her palm against a biometric scanner. The doors opened silently. 62nd floor, ma'am. The executive boardroom. Zainab stepped inside. The doors closed. The elevator rose so smoothly she could barely feel movement. When the doors opened again, she found herself standing before a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking all of Seoul. The boardroom was massive. A polished mahogany table stretched the length of the room, surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. Original artwork hung on walls paneled in dark wood. Crystal decanters filled with amber liquid sat on silver trays. And standing at the far end of the table, surrounded by executives who had risen to their feet, was the old man from yesterday. Only he was no longer wearing worn-out clothing. His silver hair was perfectly groomed. His suit, traditional Korean style, was tailored with exquisite precision. A polished wooden cane rested in his right hand, but he clearly did not need it for support. His posture was commanding. His presence filled the entire room. Every executive in the building had their heads bowed. Zainab stopped breathing. "Miss Adeyemi," the old man said warmly, his voice carrying across the silent boardroom. "Thank you for accepting my invitation." She found her voice somehow. I don't understand." He smiled, the same gentle expression from yesterday, only now it carried the weight of someone who could purchase this entire building with a single phone call. "Yesterday you helped a stranger. You asked nothing in return. You did not know who I was. You did not care. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." He gestured toward the executives surrounding him. "My name is Seo Hyunwoo. I am the founder of Seo Group." Zainab felt the blood drain from her face. Seo Group, the conglomerate that owned half the commercial real estate in Seoul. Corporation whose name appeared on hospitals, universities, shopping centers, and technology firms across Asia. The family whose wealth was measured in generations, not years. She had helped the founder stand up from a marble floor. She had scolded a security guard for calling him homeless. "Please," Chairman Seo continued, "sit down. There is someone I would like you to meet." A door at the side of the boardroom opened. And then she saw him. He moved like smoke through shadows, silent and deliberate. Tall, at least 6'3", with a lean muscular build that his tailored black suit could not entirely conceal. His jet black hair was slicked back precisely. His eyes, dark charcoal gray, swept across the room with the calculating intensity of someone who missed nothing. His expression revealed absolutely nothing. But when his collar shifted slightly as he walked, Zainab caught a glimpse of something unexpected. Black ink against fair skin. A dragon, rendered in stunning black and gray detail, beginning behind his left ear and curving toward his collarbone through wisps of drifting smoke. As he reached for the chair nearest his father, his sleeves pulled back just enough to reveal more. Both arms covered completely in intricate tattoo work. Korean tiger. Ancient mountain temples. Prayer beads. Traditional calligraphy. Shadow detailing so precise it looked alive. Across his knuckles she noticed words. Right hand, loyalty. Left hand, sacrifice. "This is my son," Chairman Seo said warmly. Seo Dukong. Dukong's gaze settled on Zainab. She felt it like physical weight pressing against her chest. "You helped my father," he said. His voice was low, controlled, almost unnervingly calm. "I helped an old man who had been pushed to the ground," she replied. "I did not know who he was." "That is precisely the point." His eyes never left hers. "You expect nothing," he continued. "You wanted nothing. That makes you either remarkably foolish or remarkably dangerous." Chairman Seo laughed softly. "My son sees threats everywhere. It is both his greatest strength and his greatest burden." He turned to Zainab. "I have reviewed your credentials, Miss Adeyemi. Your linguistic abilities are exceptional. English, Korean, French, Yoruba, and Hausa. You have worked with diplomatic delegations, corporate negotiations, and cultural exchange programs. You are precisely the kind of person Seo Group needs." Zainab's mind raced. "You are offering me a position?" "I am offering you an opportunity. Senior interpreter attached directly to executive leadership. You would work closely with international negotiations. You would travel when required. You would be compensated generously." She glanced at Dukong. His expression remained unreadable. "Why me?" Chairman Seo leaned forward slightly. "Because yesterday, in a building filled with people desperate to impress me, desperate to prove their worth, desperate to climb whatever ladder they believe leads to success, you were the only person who treated me like a human being. That is worth more than any credential on any document." Silence filled the boardroom. Zainab looked at the chairman. She looked at his son. She looked at the executives still standing with their heads bowed. "I accept." Chairman Seo's smile widened. Dukong said nothing. But something flickered behind his charcoal eyes. Something that looked almost like curiosity. The first 3 weeks of Zainab's new position passed in a blur of document translations, conference calls, and cultural briefings. She was assigned an office on the 59th floor, 3 levels below the executive suite. Her window overlooked Namsan Tower. Her desk was larger than her entire kitchen in Mapogu. Her salary was more than she had earned in 2 years combined at her previous positions. But none of that mattered as much as what she observed. Seo Dukong was not merely a CEO. He was something else entirely. She noticed it first in the way people moved around him. Executives who commanded billion-dollar divisions became visibly nervous in his presence. Security personnel who had served in military special forces deferred to him with a respect that exceeded professional obligation. Visitors from other corporations bowed deeper when he entered rooms than they did for the chairman himself. She noticed it in the phone calls that came at strange hours. The visitors who arrived through private entrances. Conversations that stopped abruptly whenever she walked too close. She noticed it in Han Ju-suk, the man who shadowed Dukong everywhere. Early 40s. Military haircut. Athletic build. Eyes that constantly scanned for threats. He treated Zainab with polite distance, but she caught him watching her whenever she was near Dukong. She noticed it in the way Dukong himself moved through the world. Controlled. Deliberate. Never surprised. Never rushed. As though he had already calculated every possible outcome before entering any room. One evening, she was working late on a contract translation when her office door opened without warning. Dukong stood in the doorway. His suit jacket was unbuttoned. His collar loose. The dragon tattoo on his neck was fully visible in the soft office lighting. "You are still here," he said. "The Osaka contract requires precision. I wanted to ensure accuracy." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Most employees leave the moment they are permitted. You stay longer than required. Why? Zainab set down her pen. Because the work matters. 'Cause mistakes in translation can destroy negotiations. Because your father trusted me with this responsibility, and I will not betray that trust through carelessness. Dukong moved closer. He stopped beside her desk, his charcoal eyes studying her face with unsettling intensity. You speak of trust as though it is simple. It is simple. Keeping promises. Doing what you say. Treating people with honesty. These things are not complicated. They are the most complicated things in existence. He leaned slightly against her desk, his presence overwhelming despite his measured calm. My father believes you are exceptional. He has mentioned you in every meeting for the past 3 weeks. He believes your kindness reveals character. He believes character is the foundation of everything worthwhile. And what do you believe? Dukong was silent for a long moment. I believe that kindness can be performed. I believe that character can be manufactured. I believe that people reveal their true nature only when they believe no one is watching, or when they face circumstances that strip away their masks. Then why are you here? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Because my father is rarely wrong about people. And because I cannot stop thinking about why you helped him. Confession seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised her. Before she could respond, he straightened, adjusted his collar, and walked toward the door. Finish your work, Miss Adeyemi. I will have a car waiting to take you home safely. He was gone before she could protest. Over the following months, Zainab's world expanded in directions she had never anticipated. She traveled to Tokyo for corporate negotiations, to Hong Kong for investment meetings, to Singapore for technology partnerships. Everywhere she went, she represented CO Group with the same dignity and precision she brought to every task. But it was the quiet moments with Chairman CO that she treasured most. He invited her to tea in his private study. He asked about her family in Nigeria. He listened intently when she described her grandmother's stories, her mother's sacrifices, her father's quiet strength. He shared his own stories in return. His youth during Korea's reconstruction. His early failures in business. His wife, long past, whose photograph still hung above his fireplace. "You remind me of her," he said one afternoon, pouring jasmine tea into porcelain cups. "Not in appearance, of course, but in spirit. She had the same quiet strength. The same refusal to be intimidated by circumstances she did not create. I am honored by the comparison. My son noticed it too." Chairman smiled knowingly. He would never admit it, of course. He has spent his entire life building walls around his heart. But I see the way he watches you. I see the way his expression changes when you enter a room. Zainab felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Chairman Seo, I assure you there is nothing. I am not accusing you of anything, child. I am simply observing what is obvious to everyone except perhaps the two of you." He sipped his tea thoughtfully. "My son carries burdens you cannot imagine. Our family history is not clean. Power we hold was not built through boardrooms alone. Dukong inherited responsibilities that would crush most men." He paused, his warm eyes meeting hers with sudden seriousness. "But I believe you are strong enough to stand beside him. If you choose to." Before Zainab could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message. She glanced at the screen. Her face went pale. "What is wrong?" the chairman asked. "There has been an incident at the Singapore office. They need me immediately for emergency translation." She stood quickly, bowing respectfully before rushing toward the door. The chairman watched her go, his expression thoughtful. "Soon," he murmured to himself. Very soon. The Singapore incident proved to be the first crack in the careful world Zainab had constructed. Began as a straightforward contract dispute. A shipping company claimed CO Group had violated terms of a logistics agreement. Lawyers demanded documentation. Translators were needed to navigate Korean, English, and Mandarin legal terminology. But when Zainab arrived at the Singapore office, she found something unexpected. Han Ji-suk was already there, along with 6 men she did not recognize. Men whose postures screamed military training despite their business attire. "Miss Adeyemi," Ji-suk said flatly, "you should not be here. I was requested for translation services. That request was forged. You need to leave. Now." Before she could respond, the conference room doors burst open. Men flooded in. Different men. Armed. Everything happened in fragments after that. Gunfire. Shouting. Ji-suk pulling her behind an overturned table. The men who had accompanied him forming a protective barrier. Bodies falling. Glass shattering. And then silence. When Zainab finally dared to look up, Ji-suk was on his phone, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "She is safe. Minor injuries only. But they knew she would be here." Someone inside the company leaked information. He listened to whoever was speaking on the other end. His expression darkened. "Understood. We are returning immediately." Private jet that carried Zainab back to Seoul was equipped with medical personnel, security monitors, and enough communications equipment to coordinate a small military operation. She sat in a leather seat near the window, her hands still trembling, her mind still processing what she had witnessed. Ji-suk sat across from her, watching her carefully. "You handled yourself well," he said finally. "Most civilians would have panicked. I grew up in Lagos during political instability. Crisis is not unfamiliar to me." His expression shifted slightly. Respect, perhaps. Or at least the beginning of it. "The men who attacked us work for Park Jin-woo. He leads a rival organization that has been trying to destabilize CO Group for years. Apparently, he has discovered that Chairman CO has taken particular interest in you. That makes you a valuable target. Zainab's stomach clenched. I am just an interpreter. You are the interpreter who helped the chairman when everyone else ignored him. You are the interpreter his son cannot stop watching. You are the interpreter who now knows more about CO Group's international operations than most board members. Jisuk leaned forward slightly. In our world, Miss Adeyemi, knowledge creates value. Value creates vulnerability. Your world! Jisuk said nothing. But his silence said everything. When the plane landed in Seoul, Dukong was waiting on the tarmac. Zainab had never seen him like this. His usual controlled calm was gone, replaced by something barely contained. His jaw was tight. His eyes blazed with cold fury. His hands, those tattooed hands marked with loyalty and sacrifice, were clenched at his sides. He moved toward her the moment she descended the stairs. Are you hurt? Minor bruises only. The medical staff confirmed. I am not asking them. I am asking you. She met his gaze. Beneath the fury, she saw something else. Something that looked almost like fear. I am fine, Dukong. It was the first time she had used his name without honorifics. The first time she had spoken to him as an equal rather than an employer. He noticed. Something shifted behind his charcoal eyes. This will not happen again, he said quietly. I will not allow it. You cannot control everything. Watch me. He turned and walked toward the waiting convoy of black vehicles, his long coat billowing behind him. Zainab followed, her heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with danger. In the weeks that followed, Zainab's world became smaller and more protected. Security personnel appeared wherever she went. Her apartment was upgraded to a penthouse in a building owned by CO Group. Her transportation was coordinated through encrypted channels. Her movements were monitored by people whose names she was never told. She should have resented it. She should have demanded her independence back. Instead, she found herself understanding. Dukong was not trying to control her. He was trying to protect her. And for someone who had spent his entire life trusting no one, that protection was the closest thing to vulnerability he could offer. She began to see him differently. The way he visited his father every evening, sitting in comfortable silence while the old man read poetry. The way he personally reviewed every security report related to her safety. The way he memorized her schedule not to monitor her, but to ensure she was never alone in vulnerable locations. She began to see past the coldness. One evening, she found him standing on the rooftop garden of CO Tower, overlooking the glittering cityscape. You should be resting, she said softly. I do not rest. That is obvious. You have not slept properly in weeks. He turned to face her. The dragon on his neck seemed to shift in the moonlight. How do you know how I sleep? Because exhaustion shows in the eyes of those who carry too much alone. Silence stretched between them. My mother used to say that, he murmured finally. She believed burdens were meant to be shared. She sounds wise. She was. Until she was taken from us. His voice hardened. I was 15 when rivals targeted our family. She died protecting my father. I watched it happen. I was too young to stop it. I swore I would never be too weak again. Zainab stepped closer. Strength is not the same as isolation. Protection is not the same as control. You cannot save everyone by pushing them away. I am not pushing you away. Then what are you doing? He looked at her for a long moment. The walls behind his eyes seemed to crack, just slightly. I am trying to keep you safe. Because losing you would destroy me in ways I cannot explain. Her breath caught. Dukong. I have never said those words to anyone. I have never allowed myself to feel what I feel when you enter a room. I have spent my entire life believing that emotion creates weakness. But when I received the call that you were under attack in Singapore, he shook his head slowly. I understood that I had already failed. 'Cause you had already become my weakness. And I would burn the entire world to protect you. Tears pricked at Zainab's eyes. I did not ask to become your weakness. I know. That is precisely why you are the only person I would ever trust with my heart. He reached out slowly, his tattooed hand hovering near her face as though asking permission. She closed the distance herself. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle despite their strength. I am not an easy man to love, he whispered. I never asked for easy. I asked for real. Their foreheads touched. Their breath mingled in the cool night air. They did not kiss. Not yet. That would come later, when trust had deepened, when walls had crumbled further, when both of them were ready. But in that moment, standing beneath Seoul's endless stars, something sacred began. The final confrontation came 3 months later. Park Jin-woo, the rival mafia leader who had orchestrated the Singapore attack, grew bolder as his patience ran thin. He leaked photographs of Zainab to criminal networks across Asia, offering substantial rewards for her capture. He funded internal sabotage within CO Group, turning board member Kwon Jae-sung into his personal informant. And when all else failed, he made his move directly. Zainab was attending a traditional Korean cultural event at the National Museum when armed men surrounded the building. Sirens wailed. Guests screamed. Security personnel drew weapons. But Park Jin-woo himself entered through the main doors, flanked by heavily armed guards, his cold smile fixed on Zainab. Miss Adeyemi. At last we meet. The chairman's pet project. The CEO's obsession. He circled her slowly. Do you understand why you are valuable? Not because of your skills. Not because of your beauty. But because Seo Dukong has shown the world that he cares about something. And caring creates weakness. Caring creates strength, Zainab replied, her voice steady despite her terror. It gives us something worth fighting for. How poetic. And how useless. He raised his hand, signaling his men to seize her. But before anyone could move, every window in the museum shattered simultaneously. Dukong entered through the main doors like a force of nature. Behind him, dozens of men in tactical gear flooded the building. Han Ji-suk led the assault team, his movements precise and lethal. The battle was brief and brutal. When the smoke cleared, Park Jin-woo stood alone, surrounded by his fallen men, facing Dukong across the blood-stained marble floor. You would destroy everything we have built, Dukong said quietly. Everything my family sacrificed to create. For what? Jealousy? Power? Pride? For the satisfaction of watching you suffer. Dukong moved closer. Then watch this. He did not kill Park Jin-woo. That would have been too simple, too expected. Instead, he exposed him. Every crime. Every betrayal. Every alliance built on corruption. By morning, Park Jin-woo was in government custody, his organization dismantled, his legacy destroyed. And Kwon Jae-sung, the traitorous board member, faced criminal charges that would ensure he never worked in business again. The wedding took place 6 months later. It was held at the Seo family estate, a sprawling traditional Korean compound surrounded by ancient forests and mountain streams. Guests arrived from 3 continents. Business leaders, diplomatic officials, cultural ambassadors, and Zainab's entire family, flown in from Nigeria by the chairman himself. Her grandmother wept when she saw the traditional Korean hanbok that had been custom designed to incorporate Nigerian attire fabric patterns. Her mother held her hands and whispered prayers of blessing. Her father stood proudly beside her, ready to walk her toward her future. Dukong waited at the altar, dressed in a traditional Korean wedding ensemble, his tattoos hidden beneath ceremonial robes. But when he saw Zainab walking toward him, something unprecedented happened. He smiled. Not the controlled expression he offered during negotiations. Not the calculated pleasantry he displayed at business functions. A real smile. Open. Vulnerable. Transformed. Chairman Seo stood beside his son, tears streaming down his weathered face. "She changed him," he whispered to Han Ju-suk. "I never believed anyone could. But she did." The ceremony blended Korean and Nigerian traditions seamlessly. Vows were exchanged in 3 languages. Prayers were offered to ancestors from 2 continents. Rings were blessed by both a Korean Buddhist monk and a Nigerian Catholic priest. When Dukong finally spoke his vows, his voice carried across the silent crowd with perfect clarity. "I spent my entire life believing that love was weakness, that trust was vulnerability, that opening your heart guaranteed only pain." He took Zainab's hands in his own, those tattooed fingers gentle against her skin. "You showed me that I was wrong. You showed me that kindness is courage, that compassion is strength, that loving someone completely, without reservation, without conditions, is the bravest thing a human being can do." He lifted her hands to his lips. "I vow to protect you, not by controlling your world but by standing beside you in whatever world you choose to create. I vow to trust you, not because you have proven yourself worthy but because you have shown me what worthiness truly means. I vow to love you, today, tomorrow, for every day that remains until my last breath." Zainab's tears flowed freely. "I came to Seoul searching for opportunity," she whispered. "I found destiny instead. I found a man who terrified me with his coldness and then shattered me with his warmth. I found a family that welcomed me despite every reason to turn me away. I found a home that exists not in any building or country, but in the heart of the man standing before me." She reached up to touch his face. "I vow to be your partner, not beneath you but beside you. I vow to be your truth, even when truth is uncomfortable. I vow to be your refuge, when the world becomes too heavy to carry alone. And I vow to love you, not the version of you that others expect, but the version you hide from everyone except me." Chairman Seo officially pronounced them husband and wife. Crowd erupted in celebration. But Dukong and Zainab barely noticed. They stood in their own world, foreheads touching, breath mingling, hearts finally unguarded. "You changed everything," he whispered. "No," she replied. "You were always capable of this. You simply needed someone to remind you." He kissed her then, gently, reverently, as though she were sacred. And in that moment, surrounded by family from 2 continents, blessed by traditions spanning generations, Seo Dukong and Zainab Adeyemi began their forever. The dragon and the woman who had tamed him. The billionaire and the interpreter who had shown him kindness. 2 people from different worlds who had somehow found each other, and who would never let go.